The former CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch,
Mike Jeffries,
is arrested in connection to a sex trafficking and prostitution scheme.
There was a time when Abercrombie & Fitch wasn't just a clothing brand, it was a cultural phenomenon. If you were a teen in the late 90s or early 2000s, you had to have that logo on your chest. The stores were temples of cool, where you stepped into a world of dim lights, pulsing music, and the overpowering scent of fierce cologne. It wasn't about clothes, it was about belonging. Sadly enough, and is often the case, this image of perfection was hiding something dark. This is the story of how Abercrombie & Fitch rose from an outdoorsman's outfitter to the it brand for America's youth. A story driven by one man's vision, Michael Jeffries, the enigmatic CEO who transformed the company into a retail empire. Under Jeffries, the brand didn't just sell clothes, it sold an idea that beauty, youth, and exclusivity were everything. This is the rise, the fall, and the reckoning of Abercrombie & Fitch. Abercrombie & Fitch's rise to cultural dominance, it's a story that stretches back over a century. Long before it was synonymous with shirtless models and exclusive youth culture, the brand was an elite outfitter for adventurers, explorers, and presidents. Founded in 1892 by David Abercrombie in New York City, the company initially specialized in high-end outdoor gear. Abercrombie, a skilled outdoorsman, created a store where wealthy patrons could find top-quality equipment for expeditions, hunting trips, and rugged adventures. In 1900, Ezra Fitch, a lawyer with a passion for the outdoors, joined the company as a co-owner. Fitch saw potential in expanding the business beyond the niche market of explorers. By 1904, Abercrombie & Fitch was officially born. The store's reputation soared, attracting prominent figures like Teddy Roosevelt, who famously purchased supplies for his African safari, and Ernest Hemingway, a loyal customer with a penchant for the brand's hunting rifles. It became the outfitter of choice for those who sought adventure and luxury in equal measure. However, as the decades passed, the brand struggled to adapt to the changing retail landscape. The mid-20th century saw shifts in consumer preferences, and by the 1970s, Abercrombie & Fitch's once iconic reputation had faded. The company filed for bankruptcy in 1977, marking the end of its first chapter. A few years later, it was acquired by Oshman Sporting Goods, and in 1988, retail giant The Limited purchased the struggling brand, setting the stage for its dramatic rebirth. In 1992, Michael Jeffries stepped in as CEO. At the time, Abercrombie & Fitch was teetering on the brink of irrelevance. Jeffries, a Harvard Business School graduate with an eye for reinvention, saw an opportunity to rebrand the company entirely. He didn't just want to sell clothes, he wanted to sell a lifestyle. Jeffries' vision, it was clear. Abercrombie & Fitch would no longer be a store for outdoorsmen. Instead, it would become the ultimate symbol of youth, beauty, and exclusivity. He rebranded the company as a retailer for affluent teenagers and young adults, tapping into the desires of America's youth. Everything about the brand was meticulously curated to reflect this new image. The stores underwent a radical transformation, gone were the utilitarian shelves and racks of outdoor gear. In their place, Jeffries introduced dim lighting, pounding music, and the intoxicating scent of fierce cologne, which became as much a part of the shopping experience as the clothes themselves. Storefronts featured shirtless male models with chiseled abs, embodying the brand's new aesthetic of the sexy youth. Jeffries, well, he understood that marketing was key to the brand's success. Abercrombie's advertising campaigns were bold, provocative, and unapologetically exclusive. The black and white images, often shot by famed photographer Bruce Weber, featured scantily clad models in idyllic settings. The message? It was clear. Abercrombie & Fitch was a club for the beautiful, the cool, and the confident, the sexy. By the late 90s and the early 2000s, Abercrombie & Fitch was everywhere. Their stores became social hubs for teens, and wearing the moose logo was a status symbol. The brand expanded rapidly, opening flagship stores across the United States and venturing into international markets. Celebrities, athletes, and influencers embraced the brand, cementing its place in pop culture. However, Jeffries' vision, it came with a price. He was infamously selective about the brand's image, and this exclusivity extended to its hiring practices. Store employees, referred to as brand representatives, were carefully chosen based on their physical appearances. Jeffries made it no secret that Abercrombie targeted a specific demographic. In a 2006 interview, he famously stated, "Candidly, we go after the cool kids. We go after the attractive all-American kid with a great attitude and lots of friends. A lot of people don't belong in our clothes, and they can't belong. Are we exclusionary? Absolutely." As you expect, people did not take this lying down. To begin with, what led to Jeffries issuing that statement? Well, by the mid-2000s, Abercrombie & Fitch's carefully cultivated image of exclusivity, well, it wasn't just controversial anymore, it was now a legal and cultural disaster. The glossy facade of the all-American lifestyle that began to crumble as former employees and customers exposed the dark side of the company's hiring practices and marketing strategies. Abercrombie's strict beauty standards, once seen as aspirational, were now viewed as exclusionary and discriminatory. Inside Abercrombie's stores, the term employee was rarely used. Staff members were officially referred to as models, a deliberate move by Jeffries to blur the line between retail workers and the brand's advertising image. However, this model status, that came with a price. Employees were judged on their physical appearance, not their skills or their qualifications. Allegations began to surface that Abercrombie deliberately marginalized employees who didn't fit their look. Minority employees, particularly those of Black, Latino, and Asian descent, reported being forced to work in stockrooms away from the sales floor. White employees with conventional good looks were given prime positions interacting with customers. The message was clear: Abercrombie's image didn't include them. In 2003, these discriminatory practices caught up with the company when a group of former employees filed a class action lawsuit. The lawsuit claimed Abercrombie violated civil rights laws by engaging in systemic racial discrimination. One plaintiff, a former Asian American employee, described being told she didn't fit the Abercrombie look and was subsequently relegated to folding clothes out of sight. The lawsuit ended in a $40 million settlement. Abercrombie was also required to implement diversity training and hire a diversity officer. Yet for many, this was too little, too late. The damage to the brand's reputation was already done. While its hiring practices sparked outrage behind closed doors, Abercrombie's marketing campaigns faced their own public backlash. The brand's catalogs were often described as softcore pornography, filled with scantily clad teens in suggestive poses. For parents, the message was disturbing. Abercrombie wasn't selling clothes, it was now selling sex appeal to minors. But the advertising wasn't the only thing drawing fire. Abercrombie's graphic t-shirts were blatantly offensive. One infamous example featured the slogan, "Two wrongs don't make a white," a racist jab that sparked outrage among Asian American communities. Another shirt depicted a list of available positions for women, reducing them to sexual stereotypes. Parents, advocacy groups, and even politicians called for the removal of offensive merchandise from Abercrombie stores. Yet, for years, the brand continued to push the envelope, seemingly indifferent to the mounting backlash. And now you know what led to Jeffries' comment about wanting the cool kids. When asked about Abercrombie's lack of plus-size options, Jeffries doubled down. He admitted the brand didn't cater to larger customers because they didn't align with the company's image. These comments ignited a firestorm. Critics accused Jeffries of fat-shaming and perpetuating toxic beauty standards. Social media campaigns like Fitch the Homeless emerged, encouraging people to donate Abercrombie clothes to homeless shelters to undermine the brand's exclusivity. The campaign went viral, further tarnishing the company's image. While the public reeled from Jeffries' comments, a darker scandal was brewing behind the scenes. Allegations described secretive parties where models were allegedly invited under the guise of career opportunities, only to face inappropriate advances from Jeffries and his inner circle. In 2023, these allegations exploded into public view. For years, rumors of impropriety surrounded Michael Jeffries, the former CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch. Whispers about exclusive parties and questionable casting practices circulated, but nothing stuck until 2023, when the facade shattered. Jeffries and his partner Matthew Smith were arrested and charged with running a prostitution and international sex trafficking ring that stretched from New York to Europe, exposing the darkest secrets of a once coveted brand. It was a lifestyle that looked glamorous from the outside: private jets, exclusive parties in Manhattan penthouses, and sprawling estates in the Hamptons. But beneath the surface lay a predatory operation meticulously designed to lure young, aspiring male models. According to federal prosecutors, Jeffries and Smith orchestrated a casting couch system where men were promised lucrative modeling contracts in exchange for participation in sex parties. The events, hosted in luxury homes and hotels, were anything but consensual. Victims described being flown in from around the world under false pretenses. Recruiters, led by middleman James Jacobson, offered the young men opportunities to meet Jeffries directly if they agreed to specific tryouts. For many, the price of access was clear: compliance or exclusion. Jacobson allegedly framed the encounters as networking opportunities, dangling Abercrombie campaigns and high-profile gigs before them. David Bradbury, an aspiring model at the time, recounted his experience in a BBC interview. He recalled being told, "Without doing what's asked, you'll never meet Jeffries." Bradbury, like others, found himself at a secluded party in the Hamptons. Uninformed household staff, all dressed in Abercrombie apparel, patrolled the premises, ensuring the men knew there was no way out. Bradbury recalled, "I didn't feel safe to say no." In chilling detail, prosecutors alleged that once the men arrived at Jeffries' residence, they were pressured to consume alcohol, Viagra, and muscle relaxants. Some were even injected with erection-inducing substances if they were unwilling or physically unable to perform. The operation, described as both violent and expletive, allegedly trafficked dozens of men over the course of a decade. Jeffries and Smith's wealth, influence, and strategic use of intimidation kept the operation running smoothly and quietly for years. The recruitment network was vast and well-founded, with Jacobson and other intermediaries scouting for ideal candidates across the globe. The BBC's investigative reporting was the first crack in the facade. Their exposé, published in 2022, revealed accounts from 12 men who attended these events. Some said they were misled about the nature of the gatherings, while others admitted they knew sex was involved, but they were blindsided by the coercion and abuse. Their stories painted a grim picture of exploitation, masked by glamour. One participant who spoke under anonymity described the psychological toll. They made you feel like if you didn't comply, you were worthless, and if you did, you were disposable. Several men alleged that Jeffries personally injected them with drugs to ensure their compliance. The fallout was immediate. Federal authorities launched an investigation uncovering a sprawling operation that extended far beyond New York. Jacobson, now 71, denied any coercive behavior, claiming through his lawyer that he had no knowledge of such conduct. But the evidence, that told a different story. Prosecutors detailed a web of private flights, paid security teams, and luxury accommodations, all bankrolled by Jeffries to maintain the secrecy of his scheme. Following their arrest, Jeffries was released on a $10 million bond, while Jacobson posted $500,000. Smith, however, was ordered to remain in custody. U.S. Attorney Breon Peace described the operation as one where wealth and power were weaponized to exploit vulnerable young men. The indictment listed 15 victims, but authorities believe there are many more who have yet to come forward. When Michael Jeffries stepped down as CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch in 2014, the company was already grappling with declining sales and a shifting retail landscape. What no one anticipated, though, was the firestorm that would erupt nearly a decade later, tying Jeffries and Abercrombie to a sprawling sex trafficking scandal. The fallout from this has been nothing short of catastrophic, both for the brand's reputation and for its bottom line. As usual, the financial markets were quick to react. Within days of the scandal breaking, Abercrombie's stock plummeted, wiping out millions in market value. Malls that once featured flagship Abercrombie stores are now dotted with empty retail spaces. Longtime customers, many of who grew up with the brand's signature logo tees and denim, took to social media to voice their outrage and to boycott the company. Adding to the controversy, former employees and models began to speak out. Put together, this paints a grim picture of what the culture was like under Jeffries, a toxic environment driven by unrealistic beauty standards, hypersexualized marketing, and favoritism. While Jeffries' resignation did mark the beginning of a slow decline for Abercrombie & Fitch, the sexual assault and trafficking allegations in 2023, that nailed the coffin shut. Public backlash intensified as media outlets ran continuous coverage of the scandal, keeping it front and center in the public's eye. The company's attempt to distance itself from Jeffries, that was met with skepticism. Abercrombie's legal team insists that the brand had no knowledge of Jeffries' illicit activities, but the public remains unconvinced, and for good reason. Here's why. Company's funds were allegedly used to cover travel, security, and event costs for the casting couch operations. Were you the jury? Would you be convinced? Drop us a comment and let us know. This does raise a question though. Who else within the organization may have been aware or even complicit? Meanwhile, the fashion industry, notorious for its scandals and silence on those scandals, has now found itself under increased scrutiny. Following Jeffries' departure, Abercrombie & Fitch embarked on a significant rebranding effort. Gone were the hypersexualized marketing campaigns featuring shirtless male models and bikini-clad teens. In their place, the brand introduced a more inclusive and diverse image, showcasing models of different ethnicities, body types, and ages. The company revamped its stores with minimalist designs, aiming for a more modern and approachable aesthetic. Advertising shifted focus too, from exclusivity to relatability, emphasizing comfort, authenticity, and community. Abercrombie even launched social media campaigns featuring real customers and influencers, a well-noted departure from its previous practice of using only professional models. Internally, the company claimed to have made significant changes to its corporate culture. New leadership prioritized creating a more inclusive workplace, implementing diversity training programs, and establishing channels for employees to report misconduct. In summary, they want the world to know they were done with Michael Jeffries, but trust is hard to rebuild. Despite these efforts, Abercrombie has struggled to shake off its controversial past. The 2023 allegations, they reopened old wounds, reminding the public of the toxic culture that defined the brand for years. Former employees and models continued to come forward with new allegations, keeping the scandal alive in headlines and in social media discussions. Customer trust, once a cornerstone of Abercrombie's success, that's been difficult to rebuild. Many customers, particularly millennials and Gen Z who grew up with the brand, now view it with skepticism or outright disdain. The shift in consumer values towards ethical consumption has only compounded Abercrombie's problems, as less and less shoppers want to be seen wearing a sex offender's brand. No one wants to get cancelled after all. In response, Abercrombie doubled down on its rebranding efforts, partnering with charitable organizations, launching sustainable fashion lines, and increasing its engagement with social justice initiatives. Yet, for many, these moves feel like too little, too late. The shadow of Michael Jeffries looms large, and the brand's association with its exploitation and abuse remains a significant barrier to its resurgence. Once a prestigious organization patronized by Hemingway and Roosevelt, Abercrombie now finds itself in a fight for survival, grappling with the consequences of a legacy it cannot escape. The company's attempts to rebrand and distance itself from the dark era of Michael Jeffries, they're ongoing, but the road to redemption is uphill and quite steep. For many, the brand will forever be associated with the toxic culture and exploitation that defined its peak years. In the end, Abercrombie & Fitch may have dressed a generation, but it also carries a legacy that no amount of rebranding can erase. But what do you think? Can Abercrombie ever truly recover from its past, or is it destined to be remembered for its controversies? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget, if you want more from us, you have to subscribe and click that bell that rings when it's time for new content. See you soon.